So as you know, I have been going through the tools and materials I gathered in Creative World, Paper World 2024. There are absolutely masses of them. They're just sort of sitting over there on a table, and I'm slowly bringing them over to test them. I have some here to test. But I decided today that I was just going to take a break from testing the tools and just do some writing, some continuous writing. Continuous writing is a really important aspect of calligraphic practice. So you're not writing alphabets, you're writing text and hoping to get the text to flow together and to work together quite nicely. You're working on spacing, you're working on balance, you're working on repetition of letter forms to ensure that the letters look the same and feel the same. Lots of you have asked questions about how do you practice. And one of the things I always tell you is you must practice the letters in their groups. No point in practicing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, because A is not like B, B is not like C, C is not like D, D is not like E. You get to I and N, and they're very different as you're working in an alphabetical order. And so you're not benefiting from positive reinforcement of the letters. That's why it's really important to practice letter groups. Now, most letter groups start with I, N, M, U, and W. And of course, depending on the script, they change a little bit. And but you need to work out what those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rule up on a Canson marker pad, and with the lining template, obviously. And some of you have been asking questions about the template. You can get the template from Ziply in Asia. I have templates in the EU. I'm speaking with a distributor in the UK. It's been a real problem finding a distributor in the UK. And of course, you can get it from John Neal in S. So let's get on with some writing. I'm using a Gillott 303, so it's a nice fine nib. And I'll talk about that a little more once I get to. So you will probably note that the Canson marker pad is different cover from what we have in the EU versus what you have in North America. This is an A4 pad. You might have a US letter size pad and possibly a US architectural, which is 9 by 12. So I already have some pin pricks. They're quite small because the template has very small holes at the top, which are 0.7 mil, and the tram pins are 1. So you get these pins with the template. I'm feeling a little bit clumsy today, so I'm not going to chance holding the template in place. And because the holes are already there, I'm just going to line them up with the holes. That whole template on. And because I'm generally quite light how I rule up, once the template's pinned in place, I can just hold the bottom here and rule up. So I'm not going to rule right at the top. So I generally use this sort of Bustrophodon pattern. I talked about this earlier in the week. So this is the direction an ox plows a field. An ox generally goes this way and then down and that way. And the ancient Egyptians used this technique to write, where they would write left to right and then right to left. Some of the Greek civilizations, I can't remember which one. I'm not sure if it was the Corinthian or the Ionic one. One of the Greek city-states used this Bustrophodon pattern to write Greek well. off. Build up those lines really nice and even. I'm going to write at 6 mil. I'm just going to double up that height, placing the bottom of the top line I'm off the edge of the page. I'm just going to hold that in place rather than in it again. Now, of course, there are other ways to work with the template. There is a QR code at the top of it. All you need to do is scan that QR code and to the 48 videos that I've made on how to use it. Because there's so much possibility. I'm writing copperplate scripts. 4, 5 side, and the 55 on this side. Cram pins in place. I generally twist them to put them in. Once those lines are vertical, because of course you could do it this way, see that this line is not vertical. Once those lines are vertical, it tells you the template is in the right place. I need to push beyond that little lip of gummed area. And I want to do every other one. Every other one is marked off with a little line, so you don't have to count it. So again, I use this, and I go up the little line, the little line. I sometimes use a Bostropodon pattern. Look for the line. I develop this line things. So find that line. So I call them tram pins because they're like a tram. And then I'm going to line up those lines. And really nicely ruled, beautiful and even. Because of course the template is 3 millimeters thick. Lines don't flex. Cuts don't flex. And they don't flex. Have nice, even consistent lines. Quite a lot of people who got the template said to me they've stopped using rulers to rule things up because the lines are so rigid and so even and so consistent. So, so let's do some writing. As you can see, I've put a little bit of tape on the nib, act as a reservoir. I don't like using caged nibs because I find it affects the sensitivity of the writing. And I'm also going to remove the sheet. I want the sheet to have a little give to it. So I'm just going to start off with an alphabet because I can make my alphabet quite evenly. And I tend to write quite lightly. I also write quite slowly. paper line, majuscule 12 mil in height. Sure that I have enough space between the lines so they're not interacting with each other. Thought I'd fit that in. So that's the whole alphabet written out. I did say I was going to write some continuous writing, but the thing about the whole alphabet, I know these letters really well. And this is my version of copperplate script, so it's very much set in. And I know how the letters work, and I know how they feel, and I know how they flow. And I understand how I understand the cadence in the writing, rhythmic, and I'm breathing regularly. And I don't know if you noticed about by the middle of the first line, about here, the writing slowed down a little bit more, and it started to get progressively. Now, one of the biggest issues I have with writing is to write quickly, and I tell students, you need to slow down. But I'm writing slower than I've ever written, and I'm like, but you're still not writing slowly. And the writing is based on your breathing. I'm breathing rhythmically because I teach very specific for how the lines work in tandem with the breath. Once you become comfortable and conversant with this, then start to understand the pattern I teach augments itself, so it becomes part of the, or rather, the writing becomes part of the breathing. Is the breathing. So if you're struggling with your calligraphy, if you're struggling with your script, and it doesn't matter if it's copperplate or Alice or any of the written scripts, I don't really consider Roman capitals a written script because historically we don't have any Roman capital manuscripts from the Roman period. But we do have things like first century Roman manuscripts, rustics, some of the Vindolanda tablet scripts, Roman writing in direct scripts. So this is something that I'm very conscious of, and you'll hear me talk about this more and more about direct writing. So at no point did you see me go back and add little the letters, writing in real time, not going back and what I call fiddling with letters. I'm not adding things. There is not a lot of tool manipulation happening. It's a very direct form of writing. This is how I perceive something moves from left to right, go back on itself a lot, and not a lot of tool manipulation, and sort of twisting and turning of the pen stuff. This, I think, when those of you watching this, and those of you thinking about doing some more suited practice, conscious of how you're going to approach them. Don't sit down and start writing. Sit down, think about the practice. What am I aiming? What am I trying to achieve? Now, my aim here was simply do writing. Every now and then, in the studio, if I get stressed, I'm working on a robust handout for the calligraphers, the Acanthus for Calligraphers workshop, which is next weekend on the 17th and 18th of February. And that's taking a lot of time. It's taking more time than I thought it would take because of how I do my research. So that sort of stressed me out a little bit. And yesterday I stopped and I thought, sit down and do some writing. And every now and then, I will stop whatever it is I'm doing, and I will come and I'll sit at my desk. I will do. Chances I'll sit at that desk over there, which is my light table. This filming area I only really use when I'm filming. It's quite nice to just relax, but it's important to make decisions about the writing first. What are your aims? My aims are always to touch the baseline and the X height. Try and stay between those lines rather than, you saw some of the majuscules started to get a little bigger, and I was very conscious to keep the writing light. Find a nice, gentle cadence. To work with the pace of my breathing, write slowly, calm me. You might find that you don't have the ability to do all of these once. Something, for instance, you might want to pick letter shape and accuracy. You might want to pick staying between. And that means that you may not be able to produce, can produce. You're focusing on one thing, staying between lines. You may want to work on the shape where you have these beautiful ellipses. I don't use the ovals because I find when people think of oval, they think of an egg. If you're thinking of an egg, then the shape isn't quite right. Unless you're doing English roundhand and not copperplate. Delicacy of touch is really important. Holding the tool correctly, aware of how you're holding. One of the things that I would suggest you do. Film yourself right. Set up a camera over there, leave it. And people say, oh, I hate seeing myself on camera. Not sharing this with anyone. It's you to look at. And you'll be surprised the kinds of things, the way your body moves. Probably noticed my posture is very good when I'm desk and I'm writing. I sit up, I don't slouch. But that's something that I cultivated over years of practice. Also, my desk is at the correct height. I have a piano bench. I am quite tall, so my femur is quite long. And my spine's quite long as well. And as a base, I have a couple extra vertebrae. So my neck is also quite. So I've worked out what the optimum height is my desk to be. So all of this I talk about posture, placement, and really conscious with your practice. A lot of you are frustrated with where you are in your practice. But you just need to set some realistic. You also need to know that sometimes the practice is not about working on the letters. Sometimes that practice is for the reason that you called to. That is to find peace. Don't get too stressed about it. Take the time, sit, write carefully, patiently, enjoy the writing. But also, if you're sitting to practice, sitting to write, find that. Don't be hard on yourself during that session. Practice, not practice letters. Working on yourself. Way. So I hope this gives you something to start your weekend off with. And for those of you who find a little bit of time and that time to do so, I also want you to know I'm looking at the time here, and I've just hit 25 minutes on this. I've been talking quite a lot as well. I probably really only spent 10 minutes writing. Don't think you need to set aside an hour of practice writing. You know, my desk is always set up. I don't have that added time constraint of setting up the desk and doing the writing, breaking it. So, you know, work within the constraints that you have. You might not be able to find 45 minutes to practice. Probably find half an hour, 5 minutes to set up, 5 minutes, 20 minutes writing, 5 minutes to wrap everything up and put it back into the box. Nowhere everything. Take your time. I'd love to hear how this video has helped you. If it has helped you, I'd love to hear your approach to this. Share this with your friends. Be good for you guys to work together and be conscious of your practice.